Mind your back corner. All right, under arrest.
You gonna find me. You gonna find my guns.
There's multiple guns.
I got a steep.
Stop everything. The moment the footage leaked, the courtroom shattered into chaos. A shaky, grainy video lit up the screen. King Harris in a shadowy backroom. Guns flashing in the background. Stacks of cash being counted. A duffel bag sliding across the table. It didn't look real. It looked ripped from a crime series. But this wasn't TV. This was King, caught on tape, and the shock was heavier than the visuals. The whispers weren't just about what was shown. It was about what it meant. Because woven into those frames was a darker implication. A thread leading straight back to T.I. The instant the screen flickered, King unraveled. He shouted. He denied. He pointed fingers. He accused. The judge's gavel cracked, but was drowned out by cameras flashing and reporters whispering like a tidal wave rolling through the chamber. For years, King had lived under the weight of rumor, but this was different. This was evidence. When the video replayed and King blurted that he wasn't the only one involved, that this was his father's operation, the entire room shifted. T.I., who had spent decades burying his past, carefully reshaping himself into a businessman and family man, now faced betrayal from his own blood. And the emotion on his face said it all. Rage, disbelief, and a helplessness no spotlight could hide. That single line from King caught, amplified, and recorded by a dozen microphones flipped the entire narrative. No longer a lone recklessness. Now, whispers of family empire. Prosecutors pounced. They froze frames, zoomed in on serial numbers, highlighted shadows of blurred figures, and tied them back to names from T.I.'s past. Each still image landed like a body blow, as though the courtroom itself was being turned into a theater for public destruction. Outside those walls, social media detonated. Clips replayed on loop. Memes hit timelines by the second. Hashtags ignited debates that split audiences in half. Some mocked King. Others defended him. And conspiracy theories surged. Was this leak accidental, or was it designed to cripple T.I. before his next move? And when whispers spread that the footage came from an FBI seizure, the speculation went nuclear. If the feds had been watching for months, then this was only the beginning. The timing couldn't have been worse. King, who had been trying to step into a new chapter as a father, was being dragged back into the same storm that had haunted his childhood. The courtroom no longer felt like a trial. It felt like a public unraveling. A legacy built on music and reinvention, now being recast as a blueprint for corruption. The gavel pounded, but the crowd's eyes stayed locked on the screen, and on T.I., sitting stone-faced as his empire cracked. Prosecutors weren't done. They followed the video with phone logs, records, and transactions, piecing together a lifestyle that didn't add up. They teased more footage, dangling cliffhangers that sent reporters sprinting to live streams. And outside, the crowd swelled, part vigil, part spectacle. Fans clashed with critics. Chants and jeers clashed against barricades. Helicopters circled overhead. The Harris name, once celebrated, now teetered on collapse. Inside the family, the tension was unbearable. Relatives scrambled. Loved ones begged for calm. Partners dropped cryptic posts that fueled speculation. The fallout had spiraled beyond control. By sundown, the story had consumed headlines, comment sections, and timelines. Celebrities and influencers took sides, some swearing loyalty to King, others accusing him of treachery. One whisper even claimed T.I. himself told lawyers, "I'm the real target here," a line that set gossip columns on fire. Then came the day's final dagger. A calm clip played. King, composed, declaring the operation ran through his father. Not a slip. Not a meltdown, a statement. It turned accusation into indictment. Screams ripped through the gallery. Reporters scribbled like mad. The judge threatened to clear the room. But online, the clip had already outrun the courtroom. Within minutes, it dominated feeds worldwide. By adjournment, the Harris legacy felt fractured beyond repair. What began as a hearing about one man's actions now loomed as a collapse of an entire family's reputation. It wasn't just about guilt or innocence anymore. It was about loyalty, legacy, and whether a son had just sacrificed his father for survival, or finally spoken the truth. And as night fell, people weren't left with closure. They were left waiting for the next leak, the next headline, the next fracture in a dynasty that once looked untouchable. Day 2 opened under that shadow. The courtroom was even more packed, cameras stacked like weapons, whispers buzzing like static. Prosecutors wasted no time. They replayed every clip, frame by frame, breaking it down like a documentary. King's voice echoed through speakers, cracking, frantic, pointing toward his father. Each pause widened the wound, and every second painted T.I. into a darker corner. The judge hammered his gavel, but the crowd wouldn't quiet. Whispers turned into gasps. Gasps turned into conversations. Order disintegrated as the trial became a spectacle. Meanwhile, online, the storm raged. Twitter threads tore apart every word King screamed. TikTok edits looped his breakdown with captions. Instagram lives buzzed with influencers declaring war between father and son. The meltdown had gone viral. Millions of views, millions of opinions, and theories grew wild. Some swore the leak was time to destroy T.I. before his next business move. Others blamed music industry rivals. Some insisted the government itself had set the stage. Truth didn't matter anymore, because the court of public opinion had already crowned its own verdict. T.I. wasn't just defending his name in a courtroom. He was the centerpiece of conspiracies bigger than his own bloodline. Inside, King's spiral deepened. Witnesses swore they saw tears as he screamed. It wasn't me. It was him. It's always been him. His finger pointed directly at T.I. The betrayal was brutal, and under the courtroom's floodlights, it was inescapable. For a man who had spent decades clawing out his past, the sting wasn't just personal. It was historical. Once, it was rivals and law enforcement tearing him down. Now it was his own son. The prosecutors drove the knife deeper. They rolled out receipts, phone logs, and bank statements. Every page clashed against T.I.'s image, turning speculation into the outline of evidence. And then the bombshell. More footage was coming. Gasps swept the courtroom. Reporters scrambled to break the story. Even T.I.'s own lawyers looked shaken. It wasn't just a trial anymore. It was a cliffhanger, a headline designed to dominate for days, be by the time the session hit pause. The courthouse steps looked less like justice and more like a circus. Supporters blasted T.I.'s old tracks through speakers, chanting his name, while critics held up cardboard signs screaming, "Snitch family," and "Lock him up." The sidewalks became a mashup of protest and block party, music clashing with boos, reporters shouting for sound bites over the chaos. Blue lights flickered across the crowd as police formed lines to stop things from boiling over. Helicopters circled, feeding the madness to live broadcasts. Online, the storm was even louder. Hashtags like hashtag KingSnitch, hashtag Harris Empire, and hashtag Done trended worldwide. YouTubers rushed out emergency breakdowns, with clickbait titles declaring T.I.'s downfall. Gossip pages spun every angle. Influencers jumped in with hot takes. And suddenly everyone, from fans to casual followers, became a commentator on the collapse of a dynasty. Inside the Harris household, the strain was unbearable. Tiny reportedly broke down in tears, torn between defending her husband and standing beside her son. Family members begged King to stop talking, to let the lawyers fight, but the damage was already done. Words couldn't be unsaid. Footage couldn't be unseen. And then, King's partner threw gasoline on the fire, posting a black screen to Instagram with the words, "Told y'all it was bigger than him." Within hours, millions of views. Comment sections erupted with speculation. The prosecution seized momentum. They argued this wasn't some young man's recklessness. This was organized, deliberate, tied to something larger. They replayed a clip of King leaning over a phone, whispering about a drop, a gun sitting clear on the table. They hit replay again and again, hammering home their narrative. This was a rebellion. It was business. And then they dropped the day's bombshell, teasing the existence of even more clips that, in their words, would erase all doubt about who ran the operation. The courtroom buzzed like a live wire. The gallery roared. T.I. sat stone-faced, fists clenched so hard they looked carved from stone. When court adjourned, chaos spilled fully into the streets. Fans and critics clash, chants of free T.I. colliding with Lock 'em Up. Police push crowds back, while online, the frenzy exploded into millions of posts. Headlines, live streams, TikTok edits. The Harris empire wasn't just bruised. It was breaking in real time under the eyes of millions. And then came the moment that shattered everything. The final clip of the day rolled, showing King not frantic, but calm, collected, speaking with a steady voice across from blurred figures. His words hit like dynamite. It's not me running this. It's my pops. Every deal, every drop, every bag. It goes through him. The silence in the room was broken by gasps, reporters scribbling furiously, bloggers whispering into recorders. In one breath, King had turned his father into the alleged mastermind. I couldn't stay silent. He slammed his hands on the table and roared, "That's a lie!" His voice echoed through the chamber, but it was too late. The clip was already clipped, shared, streamed, and trending before the light steadied. Twitter erupted with instant verdicts. Headlines screamed betrayal. Hashtags painted T.I. as exposed by his own blood. Outside, the crowd split like warring armies. Barricades buckled as chants battled, while police fought to hold the lines. Social media scorched hotter. Celebrities weighed in. Some praised King as brave. Others branded him a snake. There was no middle ground anymore. The internet demanded sides, and the Harris family was a battlefield. But under the noise, darker whispers began circulating. Federal sources hinted this footage tied into something bigger. Not just family drama, but a network that stretched further than anyone imagined. Blogs ran with it, suggesting this wasn't just a father-son fallout. It was the beginning of dismantling an empire. Inside the courtroom, Tiny reportedly covered her face and sobbed. Her son unraveling in public. Her husband accused of masterminding. A legacy decades in the making crumbling in the harshest spotlight possible. King stood frozen, trembling, as his own words replayed like echoes in everyone's mind. It was all him. I just followed orders. The judge called recess, but outside, chaos exploded. Helicopters hovered. Fans and critics clashed. The courthouse looked more like a festival of war than a trial. Online, the fallout deepened. TikTok edits set King's calm confession to ominous music, racking up millions of views. YouTubers live stream with titles like T.I. finished. Son exposes his father. Gossip blogs churn out hourly updates. And prosecutors weren't finished. With a smirk, they reminded the court this clip was only part of the story. More footage was waiting. More proof to come. And that promise landed harder than the confession itself. Because it guaranteed the storm had only just begun by nightfall. The Harris empire was in shambles. What began as whispers about King's reckless behavior had morphed into a full-blown takedown of a dynasty. T.I., once celebrated as a rap legend and businessman, was now painted as the architect of his son's alleged crimes. King, once dismissed as a reckless rebel, was suddenly the catalyst for his family's destruction. And Tiny, the matriarch, was left grasping at pieces of a legacy falling apart before the world's eyes. The world had taken sides, but no one truly knew the full story. Was King exposing a truth buried deep, or was he clawing for survival by dragging his father down? Had T.I. built his empire purely on music and hustle, or had shadows always lurked behind the success? And the question burning hotter than all others, how much more footage was still out there? The courthouse wasn't a place of justice anymore. It was a stage, a theater, each leak a cliffhanger, each accusation a headline. And with every eye glued to the screens, it was clear this wasn't just a scandal anymore. This was history being rewritten in real time. And the next leak wasn't just expected. It was promised,